So this is what it is. I'll give you it very simply. Very simply. What the jurists, after looking out of the narrations here, and they've said is that what is most important is that your parents are never neglected and never dishonored. Never disrespected, dishonored, and neglected. Right? However, that doesn't mean that you must do everything that they say if it goes against your general welfare, or of course it goes against your deen and your religion. Make sense? Let me open this up a bit. Let's just say that they want you to marry somebody who you have tried to entertain the thought, and you have reflected, you have pondered it over, you have considered it as much as possible, but you know for whatever reason it's just not going to work. Now what? Now he's not a bad guy or anything like this, it's just, but you want to marry somebody else who's also decent. So what do you have to do in that case? The first step is to try to consider who they want, try to come to a mutual agreement. That is the best. Everybody's happy. However, some parents are very unreasonable, especially from certain backgrounds. They want you to marry your cousin. Right? And they've had that in mind from when you were born. Right? Or when your cousin was born. They've got that in mind. It's all fixed up. They've actually fixed it up with your uncle. It's already done. Right? Very unreasonable. Then they will blackmail you. Right? I'm never going to speak to you. Look how sick I've become. Main to bimar ho gayi. All the rest of it. What face will I be able to show you? You're not my son anymore. You're not my daughter anymore. It's all blackmail. Right? But how do you deal with that situation? Because we're supposed to listen to our parents. So again, if you genuinely have tried, genuinely, you said, look, you really thought about it, you did your istikhara and everything, it's not going to work. Or for example, you want to go to a particular university to do, you want to study engineering and they want you to become a medical doctor. But you just don't think how you're going to see patients. It's not your thing. You just don't want to be a doctor. You want to be an engineer. So now what? Now remember, being a doctor or an engineer, it's got nothing to do with their service. Right? You can still serve them whether you're a doctor or an engineer. Right? Of course, if you're a doctor, then they won't have to go to another doctor. You'll have a doctor in-house, mashallah, when they get old. But other than that, generally, you're not going to neglect them in that. As long as you're not neglecting them, you want to dress a certain way, Islamically, which is not fard to dress this way, but it's nice. So you want to dress like that, they don't want you to dress like that. These are all examples. See, hijab is necessary, but dressing like this, right, with the thawb and the jubba and all this, that's not necessary. It's praiseworthy. So there's praiseworthy and there's necessary. Of course, when it comes to necessary, there's no compromise. When it comes to praiseworthy things, as long as you're not going against their service, you're not dishonoring them, it's not leading to these arguments where you're saying bad things to each other, then it's fine. What I generally recommend to people is that respectful perseverance is how you deal with these issues. So you increase, you stand on your position, but you increase your respect and your honor and your service to them. You have to win them in this game. You cannot come down and start arguing back, saying bad things, disrespecting, because you're not allowed to do that. You can't even say oof, like oof, whatever. You can't make any of those sounds. That's what the Quran says. It's one of the few places in the Quran that the Quran has used an onomatopoeia, right? A sound of a word, to show how significant this is, that do not even use this word, right? Or anything like it. So you just have to be more respectful and try to beat them and try to basically win their love for you over the love of their culture, for example. The love of their preconceived thoughts. Do you understand? That no, my child is a good look at the respect they're showing. That's what you have to do. You cannot disrespect them, but you can be firm in your position. But if you are wrong in your position, then you will be sinful. So go and find out from a scholar. This is my dilemma. Am I correct to say that I want to marry this person? Or I want to do this? or I want to study this. Always consult, because we can be wrong. Just as our parents could be wrong, we could be wrong as well. So hopefully that clinches it for us, that gives us some understanding of it. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the best inshallah in this regard, grant us the best in our studies, not make us neglect, not allow us to neglect our families as well, because we're going to need them, right? We will always need them, and they will be the first people to look out for us when we're in need. So never let your parents go. And the du'as that you can get from them will take you miles further than you can go on your own, believe me. I believe today that wherever I am, it's because of my mother and my father. My mother's already passed away, but I have so much gratitude because I know what she did when she was young and the encouragement. Yes, she could be difficult at times. She was difficult at times. And there were times when my mother used to wear a niqab. And when I was young, I refused to go out with her because she wore a niqab. I still remember, and I feel so bad to this day. She wanted to buy me some shoes. And I don't know what phase I was going through. I was probably about 8, 9 years old, right? My brother used to go into school at that time. Now it's quite common. But now in that time, with a hat on his head, I would never do that, right? I was like, no, right? I was different. I refused to go with my mother. I said, no. She's like, come on. I promised you I'll take you to buy your shoes. I said, no, I don't want to come. She said, why don't you come? I mean, she's surprised. Like, she's made time to take me out. And then I think I don't know how I even said it, but I still remember that. Allah helped me. Allah helped me that He sorted me out, right? He sorted me out. Otherwise, I don't know where I would be today, right? But you go through these things when you're young. Just being honest. You go through these things when you're young. You could go through these things. But remember, try to always move on. Try to take good company and try to get better. But parents, never neglect them. That's very important. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept wa akhiru da'wan alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. How to deal with a parent who always misunderstands you, blames you for all the things going wrong. You see, this could be both ways. It may be our perspective, that I think I'm always right and they are always. Sometimes, yes, you do get stubborn parents who you can never do anything right, right? The way to do this is, look, there's not much you can do with your parents in terms like you can't divorce your parents. This is not a wife or a husband, right? It's not a job that you can change. You understand? It's not an employee that you can fire. So at the end of the day, be persevering. Make lots of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and try to read some books that tell you how to deal with difficult people. There are certain strategies that you can use by showing additional kindness that just rocks them off their feet. Because they're used to a certain response from you, certain expression of your face, right? Every time they do it's like, oh. Just that face. And it just becomes a vicious cycle. They think you hate them and you think they hate you, and it's just a vicious cycle, and we have to try to bring that love out again. So that's one way to try to get some self-help manuals to understand how to deal with difficult people and try to use additional like extra dose of kindness, get some gifts for them or whatever the case is. And then after that, remember, they're not going to change straight away. So persevere after that. Keep doing it, right? Just drink the bitter pills that they give you, right? The doses that they give you. And hopefully ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Another thing is maybe to get some help from an uncle or grandparents or something like that to try to sit you down. Somebody they will listen to. And if not, because I know it could just be, then just keep trying. And be patient, and remember that all rewards for patience, and patience is the highest reward. بشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. Give glad tidings to those who are patient, because Allah is remembering everything and Allah is noting everything, and you will get your reward for this. And with every difficulty comes ease, as Allah says in the Quran, إن مع العسر يسرا. How do you manage, balance your attitude and actions with your parents if they are not practicing, and if you face tough situations where you can't obey them, if it is disobeying Allah? Example, they tell you not to wear an abaya. What's the best deed to do for your parents? Again, same thing. I think it's the same thing, is just try to be more kind but firm. No, mom, I have to do this. Look, it's necessary, and I believe it's necessary. That's why I have to do this. But then go and help them in the kitchen, right? Go and cook something for them, right? Wake up and do some breakfast for them. And then they will understand that this deen, this abaya that you're putting on, it makes you make good breakfast, right? It makes you a better person. They have, you see, it's all based on suspicion. They think you can't get married because you can't, the people they think you should be married to won't marry you. Because it's a clique, it's a certain category, right? So this is fears that they have. You need to try to get them out of that fear to say, no, abaya-clad women can also be nice people. Do you understand? I'm making light of it, but really this is what it is. Try to get it through to them and get them to respect people of this. Because they've had years and years and years of this thought in their mind that people of abaya, they're downtrodden, they're not advanced, they don't get it, or whatever preconceived ideas that they have in their mind. Allah help. You mentioned that we should respect and love our parents, and that's the least we can do for them. How do you explain this to someone who has given up for adoption by their parents, and for this reason their parents mean nothing to them? That's a tougher one. That's obviously a tougher situation. If they've been given up for adoption, then that means they don't have much connection, I'm assuming, with them. However, as you get older, we pray that you will find it in your heart to forgive them. They may have been going through some weird time in their life, which is not justifiable in the general sense of it, right? It's not justifiable, right? But they may have been going through something. Maybe they were very immature when they got married. Maybe they were very self-centered, or whatever the case is. But at the end of the day, we must remember that we are also wrong in many, many things that we do in our life, right? If we think that's a heinous crime, we may do other things as well. And if we want Allah to forgive us, we should find it in our heart to also forgive them. Forgiving them doesn't mean that you have to now go and treat them like a mother that has always been around if she doesn't want you. If they don't want you, fine. But at least find the means to find something in your heart, because it's not going to harm you at all. Taking a grudge with you to your grave and not forgiving somebody until you die is not going to make you any richer. It's not going to make you any better off. Remember that. It's not going to make you any better off. Right? You don't lose anything by doing this. But you do gain, because forgiveness is a characteristic of Allah. Allah is Ghafoor. He is Ghaffar. He is Ghafir. He uses many, many words to explain who He is. One of them means the forgiver. Another one means the one who abundantly forgives. And the other one means the one who frequently forgives. Over and over and over again, despite the violations that people commit. So if that's what we want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to find it, because this is just the world at the end of the day. In the hereafter, we'll have to stand in front of Allah. And the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ says, طُوبَى لِمَنْ وُجِدَ فِي صَحِيفَتِهِ إِسْتِغْفَارًا كَثِيرًا. Right? Glad tidings for the one in whose records lots of istighfar is found. Istighfar means seeking forgiveness for oneself. But clearly, forgiving others is also, inshallah, a very praiseworthy deed. Very easy to say, maybe difficult, but one day, inshallah, if you have that resentment, one day we ask Allah that He remove it from you, because there's no benefit in keeping it. Resentment is not good for anybody, for anything. It impedes your life, impedes your happiness in your life, because you have something missing. If you can overcome that and forgive somebody, you've just released a massive knot from your heart. And I pray for people like this, because obviously it must be very, very difficult. What do you do when your parents tell you that you are taking Islam too seriously and that you should be modern and that you will get modern? If they said moderate, I could understand that. Modern, you think religious people are not modern? Like what kind of, what absurdity is that? That's just ridiculous. They think that anybody who's religious can't be modern. I mean, you could be wearing modern clothes and be religious, right? What does it mean to be modern? Wearing a Gucci jacket? Is that what it means to be modern? Right? Don't wear one then. Subhanallah. Have you been to the Emirates? They've got they've got men's ghutras, what they call it, those shawls they wear. They've got Kenzo shawls. Isn't that modern? right? I'm not saying that's all religious, the way that's a national dress, but it's just a misunderstanding. Again, it's that misunderstanding, and that you will get to be religious later on in your life. Wow, when, right? What do you tell them? Also, I think I'm disobeying them by not removing my hijab. You're not disobeying them at all by not removing your hijab. But you know, some children, I do want to say, just to be fair, some people do go a bit extreme. Some children in their religiosity do go a bit extreme. They've been very unreligious. Suddenly they get so religious that they take on too much burden, too much extra. Not just the obligations, but too much extra, and then they get messed up. So if it's that case, then as I said, always ask a scholar. But if it's just moderation, then just kindness is your response. Kindness is your response. Show what it means to be a religious person.